Hey everyone, welcome back. So you remember those days when you would go to the beach as a kid and you would build the sandcastle, and you'd build that sandcastle and your parents probably would be watching you, making sure you were safe. And inevitably the tide always wants to come in because you want to build it in the sand down near the tide line there. And you might be there a little while. And if that tide's not going out, it's coming in. So you've got a 50% chance. But usually it's always coming in, it seems like, on those days. And maybe those are just the days I remember, but the tide starts coming in. As a kid, you think, well, you know what? Not a problem. I'm just going to build a little moat around my castle, and that's going to fill with water, and that's going to be perfect because not only will I have a cool moat, but that will prevent my sandcastle from getting consumed by the ocean. And that's reminds me a lot of what we see today, right now, with our leadership and with what's going on as far as in our cities with the coronavirus. So what am I talking about exactly? I'm talking about the super poor leadership that we see in general by our governments. And some are better than others. So, I see some rays of light, some hope in some places, because everybody's starting to change their tune a little bit right now around the masks. But not everywhere. Not everywhere. Here in British Columbia, where I live, I was on Twitter just yesterday or the day before, and there was a government official there saying, you don't have to wear masks. Masks are only for people who are sick. Hello? How do you know who's sick? Right? Like, you would think that people within government that are providing you with guidance would have some level of education, or at least some common sense, and maybe an internet connection where they could see the news, so they could actually even just parrot what the CDC and the WHO are now saying. Like, if you're not smart enough to have common sense, then at least just copy what other people are doing, right? Like, that's not so bad. So the tide's coming in, and I don't think they realize it. I think, because this is what I see. I see all this celebration. I see that, okay, we're doing great. We're flattening the curve, and everybody's celebrating on social media that we're doing such a good job. No, we're not. The beaches here are full of people. People are on the BC ferries here. Those, they say that they've reduced, but they're still super busy. Like, we have not changed enough. And the reason for that is that we just, up here in Canada, I guess we're in the habit of asking nicely, could you please stay at home? That doesn't work. Like, who thinks that works, right? The reason we have police is because we don't always obey the law. When we're in a hurry, we speed. We don't follow all the rules. We definitely, the majority of us don't pay attention to people who just give you a recommendation. We recommend that you floss every day. Oh, thanks a lot. I'll remember that. Yeah. We recommend you don't run with scissors. Okay, thanks a lot for that guidance. We recommend you stay home, shelter in place, and don't go to the beach or go anywhere on Easter. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's great. Thanks for whatever you just said, right? Like, who thinks that actually is going to be enough, right? Because it's not. So the asking nicely is not effective. Oh yeah, sure, some people will stay at home, like I stay at home, you stay at home, thank you very much. But a whole bunch of other people don't stay at home, right? All the kids and stuff, like, not all the kids, I take that back. A bunch of kids, a bunch of people, let's not just say kids, because it's a bunch of people of all ages, are just not going to stay home because they want to go out, they want to exercise, they want to go to the park, they want to go to the beach, they want to get some sunshine, they want to take their dog out for a walk, they want to have whatever the excuse is, right? And they will go do that. And what's the harm in that? Well, the harm is that when there's a bunch of people out, those are the people that are now spreading it, and it's going to prolong how long this goes on for. Well, what's the harm in that? What if we go 6 months or a year or 2 years rather than just 30 days? Well, the harm in that is the economy. So if you haven't lost your job yet, you may very well in the near future. So how many millions are unemployed now in the US? A whole bunch, right? Like, I lose track. It goes up every day so much. It's just crazy. And that's why, because we're not containing this, because we're not taking it seriously. We're asking people, pretty please, rather than bringing in the military, bringing in the police to give people fines if they're outside, right? It should be, could you please stay at home? That would be really nice of you. And that would be great. And then we celebrate that we're flattening the curve. Hello, people. The tide just started to change here. So you've dug your moat and it's filled with a little bit of water and your sandcastle's still there and you think you're all good. But the curve hasn't even hit here yet. Like, we're not flattening the curve yet because the curve's not here yet. So if you think your mitigation from asking people nicely has helped, well, not really. Like, you're not even seeing it yet. So anyway, that's going to cause problems. That's going to cause death. That's going to cause suffering. That's going to cause unemployment. That's going to cause all the things that we don't want, right? We need strong leadership in these places. And I don't see it where I live, which is unfortunate. So when that happens, that's going to make a lot of people frustrated because the science is out there. It's not like we don't know that wearing gloves is good. It's not like we don't know that washing hands is good. It's not like we don't know that wearing a mask, whether you're sick, whether you think you're sick, whether you're whatever, is a good idea, right? There is a reason why when we sneeze or when we cough, we do that, right? You probably don't think about it when you're doing it, right? But there's a reason why we do it. And that's because those particles shooting out of your face can go up to 25 feet. That's scientifically proven. You can look it up. I'm not making that number up. So we know that. We know that people who are infected don't often know for up to 2 weeks. They can spread the virus during that time. It sounds like maybe not the full 2 weeks, but a good part of it, right? And so you never know who's infected. There's a good reason why healthcare professionals wear PPE, personal protective equipment, even when they're not sick, right? So people should be wearing PPE. People should be wearing masks. So when that's why I get frustrated with that. So the guidance is wrong in most places still. So even though the world is slowly changing, even though this was reality in, like, I think the world knew way before this even happened. Like, I think most scientists, if you talk to them, they'll say, yeah, if you want to be as protected as possible, wear a mask. And so, but, even in November, December timeframe, when this exploded in Wuhan, we could see all the healthcare professionals there wearing masks, right? I mean, that culture is much more familiar with wearing masks than we are, but nevertheless, we could have just looked at that on YouTube or even the mainstream news, the legacy news, and said, okay, yeah, maybe that's a good idea, right? And when I was debating with this government person on Twitter, they brought up the two ridiculous things of, well, people might screw it up when they put it on. No, they won't. No, they won't. People are not that dumb, right? It says right on the package how to put on a mask. And even if you put it on wrong, it's going to protect you to some degree. Well, what if they handle it wrong? What if? The chance is low. It's like saying don't wear seatbelts because they're an entrapment hazard. No, that argument is false. And then the other one is, well, they need to be fit tested. No, they don't. They're not firemen. They're not going into a burning house full of smoke where 1 second where the seal is not correct is going to cause them physical harm. No, that's not the case. They're not firemen. They don't need to be fit tested. They need to put something over their mouth and their nose and any airway to reduce, that's the key word, to reduce the chance of being infected. It's never going to be 100%, right? We hope it's as close as possible. But if it's not a perfect seal, which a lot of the surgical masks are not, but if that's all you've got, then wear it, right? What we're looking for is to increase your percentage as far as protection, reduce your risk, I guess is a better way of saying that. That's what we're looking for. So forget any argument that anybody says about fit testing or you might screw it up. You're smarter than that, right? So, anyway, so when we get all that bad guidance and then your grandma dies as a result of the bad guidance, because that's what's going to happen, right? Not your grandma, and hopefully, hopefully not too many, but older people are dying because people are bringing it home and infecting them. Like, how bad is that? You're given bad guidance, you get infected, you bring it home, you infect your mother, father, grandparents, and then they die, and they have to go to the hospital, and you can't be with them during that time because it's all in quarantine, right? You can't go in there and hold their hand and say those last words. No, right? Because we didn't wear a mask because we were given the guidance that you don't need to, right? And we were asked nicely to stay home, and people didn't, right? So that's what irritates me. And I think that as a result, we're going to see some class action lawsuits against a bunch of different people. And I wonder how that's going to change the world. It was interesting today when I saw on Aljazeera, I stream a bunch of different news channels and some of my monitors in this room here. And so I saw that come on, and I saw a bunch of people debating, not really debating. They were getting grilled. These were world leaders, and they were getting grilled, literally grilled. And it was amazing to see, because usually the reporters don't do that. But I think people are getting wind of the circumstance now, right? They're getting wind of what's actually going on, that we're being fooled, right, this way, which is just really evil. And so because there's not a lot of masks in the world, because governments didn't prepare for a pandemic, which was inevitable, right? Great YouTube videos by Bill Gates and others, right? Obama had a great video out there where they were saying, this is going to happen, we must prepare. But we didn't. And now we're saying that you don't need to wear a mask because we simply don't have any masks for you to buy. But we're not saying that last part, okay? So on Al Jazeera this morning, when they were grilling the world leaders, the reporter was fabulous. If you can go and watch it, please do. She was saying, if we had enough masks in the world, would you recommend that everyone wear one? And the answer has told you everything you need to know. They would say, well, we didn't know whether, or we don't know whether you should or you shouldn't, because this is a brand new virus. This is the novel virus. No, that's not an answer. That just means you're dumb if you say that. Really, like, how stupid of an answer is that, right? This is a virus. You shoot the particles out of your mouth when you're infected, just like every other virus, just like the cold. Like, it's not this new virus where transmission is totally new. It's not like you're shooting laser beams out of your eyes to infect people. It's not like, there's magic genies coming out of your butt that then go infect people. No, it's like the same thing as a common cold. It's a variety of the coronavirus, right? Like we're used to this. So that answer, when they say that, just screams incompetency at the very least. So that was funny to watch them say that. Like I wanted to jump into the TV and say, what are you talking about, right? I was surprised the reporter didn't. But so it's a new virus. It's the novel virus, right? Like, whatever. The other answer they often say is, well, we didn't know. This has changed so much over the last few months. And, how were we to know whether you need masks or not? Well, let's just go back to the first question, because it's a coronavirus. It's like, many of the similar properties. Because everybody knows, everybody but you apparently, right? I was thinking when I saw that. And so then finally, when the reporter kept pushing them and said, well, forget all that. How about today, with what you know today, would you recommend that everybody in the world wear masks if we have enough masks? And the answer inevitably is never no, because then they would have liability, right? So people are being very careful now, whereas before they were saying no. And some of those videos are mysteriously disappearing on the internet. Oh, hey, Blue Flash from India. Nice you could join. So that's interesting, right? But they're very careful how they say yes. They kind of qualify it, right? They're like, well, we didn't know, it's a new virus, it changes every day. But yes, because they have to, because that's science, because that's proven, right? And I've got link after link after link that I actually sent that government person on Twitter. And I said, here's my evidence. Where's yours, right? And of course, she didn't have any. There's a bunch of links out there to articles that say, well, you probably don't need a mask. But it's really wishy-washy. There's no science behind it. It's like they did a study, a very small study that I see sometimes, where it's like, well, we're kind of on the fence. It's like, no, just look at all the other studies that show that we're not. So anyway, and all you have to do is use common sense and think that, well, okay, if I put a barrier between me and something else, if I don't want that something else to get to me, that's probably good, right? And just forget about all the other nonsense about, well, what if you don't wear it wrong and stuff like that. So we've got all this bad guidance out there that's slowly changing at a glacial rate, because this virus doesn't wait for bureaucrats, of course, right? And so it's just mowing through stuff. So we're going to see some, I would expect, class action lawsuits, because when you look at what that looks like, it's really too many people to go into a normal court case type of thing, right? So when you've got that sort of complaint, and we'll have thousands, well, millions, right? We'll have millions of people that are frustrated with their governments. And I say governments because that's, I look at the leadership within governments, but it'll be way more than that we'll see that come out of, right? So we'll see people going after every sort of organization, companies, government, even countries. And we see this already where there's an organization or two, and I'm not familiar with who they are, so you have to look this up, is we see them going after China. So doing a class action lawsuit against China. And I think that's quite interesting, right? So I've never seen that before, where you go after a whole country. So that'll be interesting, right? We'll see that. I think we'll definitely expect class action lawsuits against doctors, unfortunately, right? I think that's who you would get upset with when your family members die initially, right? So hopefully not. Like, I think the doctors are doing everything they can, and I have really high regard for them and high respect, and they're just caught in the middle of this. I think a lot of healthcare workers actually are very understaffed and under-equipped with PPE, personal protective equipment. And I think that we should really be doing a call to arms, turning this around. So if I was, just bear with me for a second, if I was leading this whole thing, I would say, sorry, we don't have enough PPE. I know you have some at home, and if you could spare some for our first responders, for our medical staff, that's going to be very beneficial to everybody. And I would reward people that did that. And I would also reward companies that switch their production lines to make them. I would do all sorts of things like that. But I would try to be honest. I know there's probably a reason why we're not being honest about this, but the game is over. We know already, right? So I don't understand. I guess we're just slow to change, right? I see hospitals could also be victim to this. I definitely think that we'll see organizations like the World Health Organization, the WHO, the CDC, right? The Center for Disease Control. I definitely think that we'll see some issues there, right? Tedros, I cannot imagine how much heat Tedros is going to get, and for so many different reasons, right? And of course, China, I don't know how that's going to pan out, but I think there's going to be a lot more awareness around all the that will pan out. But I would expect lawyers that specialize in this area to be crazy busy after this, right? Just because I think what we should see is a root cause analysis where we go through, and the media as well. I think they'll have a heyday on this as they go through and go, wait a minute, we knew all this. So why did you say something that just wasn't true, right? Why did people not prepare? And a great example of this is if you go on YouTube and look at, the name escapes me, but the government leadership for the people in San Francisco. This is just crazy. There's a bunch of stuff on TikTok, on YouTube about this where they do remixes, and they show them saying, oh yeah, come on down, right? It's totally fine here. And that, of course, caused more infections, caused it to spread. And really, when you look at how it amplified the whole situation, right? Simply having leadership say things like that caused so much more of a problem, right? When you look at how it would have spread, how it would have caused the shutdown, how it would have done all these things, right? So, yeah, I expect some real huge, massive tort action there, and that's going to be really interesting. So people always call my phone when I'm right in the middle of doing one of these things. Anyway, so to summarize, to finish up here, unless you guys have questions, we're going to expect massive legal action, massive tort action, I would expect. We're going to expect the class action lawsuits that are going to be, I would think, bigger than anything we've ever seen in history. However, that's not a good thing, right? That's what I expect to happen, but that's not a good thing. And because at the end of the day, even if you get a reward, even if you get reimbursement or what's it called? Remuneration? Forget the word. It starts with an R, I think. But even let's say you get $1 million, which you won't, but let's say you get, because human life in the court system doesn't seem to be worth that much. Let's say you get a couple of $1,000 or $100,000 or something like that, right? With all the legal charges. Thanks, Blue Flash. Yeah, you get all that. It's not going to bring your relatives back, right? Nothing can replace them. So while I expect all of this sort of thing to occur, it's not going to make our lives any better, really, I don't think. It's definitely not going to bring back that special person in your life that passes away as a result of this. So that's why I think we really need to, at this point, I mean, you don't have to stop listening to government. Yeah, I watch the news, not the traditional TV news, but I stream it here. But I'm not listening to people that say you don't need to wear a mask when you go in a store. I'm not listening to all these people that say, you don't have to be careful, it's totally fine, right? Because it's simply not true. Some of the best details that we got came out of Wuhan during that time, and it's proven to be a area into the ER. And the person said, no, because if you do, it's staying there. And that's how strict they were, right? I mean, we knew China was super strict on many things, right? But that's really the level that we have to be. We have to be super strict. So, if you've got somebody in your family who has a reduced immune response, if you've got an older person in your household, if you've got somebody with a condition already, be super careful, right? Super careful. Wear a mask. Put them in a part of the house, if you can, with their own bathroom, so they're semi-quarantined already. Reduce the amount of personal contact. Do all the things you need to do, right, within your means to protect them, right? Because this is not over, and this is not, what we're doing by asking politely and not wearing a mask. None of that's going to help protect your family. So, and the class action lawsuits that will follow are not going to bring your relatives back either. So that's it. A bit of a downer today. I'm sorry. How about tomorrow or the next video I make? I'm going to talk about some real positive things that we can all do. And before I wrap up, let me read some of the comments here. I'm sorry, I just been going a little bit there. Let's see. Nancy Pelosi encouraged people to gather and socialize in San Francisco. Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, that was amazing. You don't see that so much anymore, but what you do see is government officials just not being strict enough to discourage it and saying nonsense like, oh, it's all good, there's barely anybody out there, when in fact there's a bunch of people out there in close proximity to each other. And yeah, so it's just insanity, right? So that's really unfortunate. But anyway, that's where we're at. So that's a wrap. I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're getting through this okay, you and your family. I hope you've got food and stuff to eat. One of the things I'd recommend is, I know we can't get out and talk to people, but if the sun is out, get outside a little bit, either on your deck or behind your house or on your patio or just through the window. Get some vitamin D. There's lots of studies that are saying that actually helps. And also, treat each other as best you can, right? We can't go out and meet each other in person, but we can socialize and wish each other the best. And I think that little bit of, positive encouragement, reaching out to people that you haven't talked to in a long time, texting them, hey, I heard from my cousin in England this morning. It just brought a ray of light into my day. So it's so fantastic to hear from her. And so those things make a big difference, even just a quick text saying, how you doing? So I highly encourage that. But that's it for me today. Have a good one. Safe travels. See you later.